Hello, I'm Harry Caufield, and I'm here to talk to you about KG-OBO. So, KG-OBO stands for Knowledge Graphs of Open Biological and Biomedical Ontologies. Now, especially if you've seen any of the other talks in BOSC today, you're going to be familiar with at least one of these concepts, especially the Open Biological and Biomedical Ontologies, or OBOs. But if you're not familiar with that, or if you'd like to learn a little bit more about knowledge graphs, well, I'm going to give the necessary background here. So what is a knowledge graph? There's a variety of definitions out there, but I like to think of a knowledge graph as a heterogeneous collection of concepts or entities, and most importantly, their relationships. So in practice, this may be a network or a series of connected vertices, where each of those vertices may be one of a variety of different types of information connected by a variety of different types of interactions. In biology and biomedicine, this often means instance data of specific events, like a particular patient here, their vertex 1, or V1, has disease phenotype V2. And we can connect that with yet another type of interaction or relationship as a conceptual observation, such as that disease phenotype V2 involves a protein V3. So we have lots of these different types of relationships, and we can connect them all in increasingly large networks. And by increasingly large, I mean to the tens of millions of interactions in one particular knowledge graph, or KG. So how do we consistently complement the data in those knowledge graphs with domain knowledge? For example, we want to be able to say V2 is a vascular disorder. V3, that protein is involved in ion transmembrane transport, and then iterate through our entire graph and complement our observations with things that would better contextualize those kinds of relationships. First of all, we want to be able to join all of these varied relationships into one single graph structure. So we can essentially draw a pathway from one vertex to another. We know that biology is made of relationships, so intuitively this shouldn't be a massive problem, but biology is pretty messy. And then we want to be able to search that, and we want to be able to learn new relationships from the existing graph content. So that's going into the realm of graph machine learning. So how do these open bio-ontologies help? So OBOs are great because they're a source of hierarchical domain knowledge. They're openly available from obofoundry.org if you're not familiar. I suggest visiting as soon as you can. There are term descriptions. These are often highly standardized. They're curated, they're validated, and they're very consistent in format and structure, which is not only convenient but more or less essential for consistently using multiple ontologies within the same context. They're rich in metadata. Very importantly, they're open, generally with a CC BY 3.0 license. They're compatible with an open toolbox of bioinformatics tools such as Robot and more recently Oak, or the Ontology Access Kit. And they're frequently updated. And if they're not, well, there's metadata that shows how recently they have been updated. So OBOs as a resource of domain knowledge are already actively used. They're often used in conjunction with each other. So why not just take sets of these and translate them as we need them and combine them with knowledge graphs? Well, our first trouble is that graphs aren't really ontologies. They're kind of more of a more broadly defined data structure. Ontologies are often domain or task specific, and then may not actually match the even broader scope of a particular knowledge graph. Also, relationship types vary. The relationships that we have defined within a particular ontology, or even a set of ontologies, may not be congruent with those that we see within our favorite knowledge graph, or even multiple graphs. Content and usage varies across these OBO ontologies, even when their format is consistent, as well as the actual underlying data model may not align well with multiple ontologies and multiple knowledge graphs. Our group tends to use the BioLink model that we developed. We think that that's just kind of the right level of balance of defining detail in a knowledge graph, and even the kind of relationships that you see within ontologies as well. So that's our solution. But then we run into additional problems like, okay, how do we keep track of versions? We know that provenance doesn't always get tracked, and it's quite inefficient to translate every time an ontology is needed for a particular knowledge graph, especially when you're talking about very large ontologies. So what's KG-OBO? Well, it's standardized ontologies as graph nodes and edges in a consistent, intelligible format with version tracking and, most importantly, made publicly available. It's open. So you can visit it at this address here. It's part of our Knowledge Graph Hub or KG Hub project. In brief, essentially what we've done is we've taken the OBO Foundry ontologies, so most recently about 250, 251 in total. Not all of them are actively updated right now. But we do some extensive preprocessing with the robot tool, as well as with the KGX, that's the knowledge graph pipeline that we use to transform these graph representations of OBO ontologies into node and edge files, as well as JSON. And then we deposit that on our KG Hub platform, so it's publicly available. So what you end up with in the end are these nodes and edges in a consistent TSV format, as well as the JSON I mentioned, and additional metadata that will help you to track the provenance not only of the OBO itself, but of the process that was used to create that transform. So all in all, that means that on KG-OBO we currently have just over 200 ontologies as graphs. In total, we keep track of more than 500 versions since the project started around September of last year. In terms of the total number of edges or the relationships that we have across all of our ontologies, well, the largest one in our set is the NCBI taxon at more than 4 million edges, but we also have the larger ontologies like drug ontology and protein ontology represented, and then certainly a extensive collection of other ontologies. Size is certainly not the only important property of any one of these ontologies, but rather the kind of domain knowledge that it's capturing. They follow this consistent TSV format. You're welcome to take a look at the files themselves. They're all publicly available, but they follow our consistent BioLink structure, both in terms of the categories they follow for the node types, but as well as the edge types. And they enable us to do some pretty exciting things. We're already integrating them into our KG-IDG, or Illuminating Druggable Genome related knowledge graph. But we can also go ahead and try to assemble new collections of these hierarchical biological relationships and do some pretty exciting graph-based machine learning over these heterogeneous collections of observations and conceptual data. So with that, have a great day.